It's a warm day as the sun casts a shadow on the rocky terrain and a chilling breeze dances off the neighboring mountains. Thousands of massive boulders are scattered like toys in a giant's playground and are sprawled out as far as the eye can see. An example of the immense power of nature. With each step taken along the gravel path, Turtle Mountain stands watchful in the distance, like a sentinel, guarding the sad remnants of a dark and tragic past. But the catastrophe that took place over a century ago seems to be a distant memory as flowers bloom amongst the jagged rocks and birds chirp in the distance. Yet, as you continue exploring, an eerie mist slowly creeps over the land, shrouding the once beautiful scenery in a cloak of mystery. The once bright and sunny walk now turns ominous. Suddenly, you're overwhelmed by the uneasy feeling of being watched, but you're by yourself and see no one else in the distance. With trepidation, you press forward, determined not to let this feeling get to you. You take a few steps, and just as the tightness in your chest loosens, a scream pierces the air. Frightened, you search for the source. Now, you hear moaning, and it appears to be coming from the towering boulders. It grows louder, like a mournful chorus in an otherwise desolate place. Then, another scream, and now your heart beats faster as you're standing right on top of where the scream came from. Before you take a step, you feel a breath prickling at your neck. But when you look around, there's no one there. I'm Nadine Bailey, and this is Haunted Canada. Join me as we travel back in time to share the story of one of the largest and deadliest landslides in Canadian history, known as the Frank Slide. The small town of Frank, Alberta, is nestled in the heart of the Rocky Mountains in an area called Crowsnest Pass. Today, it has a population of about 200 residents and is a thriving artist community, popular with tourists and those who enjoy exploring the outdoors and the area's history. In 1901, coal was found in the hills, which brought an influx of workers and their families to the new mining site. The town was named after Henry Frank, who, along with Samuel Gibeau, operated the Canadian-American Coal and Coke Company to extract the coal from Turtle Mountain. The small town of Frank, at the base of Turtle Mountain, continued to grow over the next few years and was incorporated on September 10, 1901. The company built houses and a 2-story schoolhouse, opened stores, and established 4 local hotels. Working in a coal mine wasn't easy. It was back-breaking labor while spending 6, sometimes 7 days a week underground. Men emerged from the coal and dark mine covered in dirt and soot. While it was considered dangerous work, it also paid very well, and those who risked going underground felt that it was worth it. Close to 600 people lived at the base of the mountain, but for thousands of years, before settlers discovered coal, it was well known to the Blackfoot people that the area was not a great place to lay down roots. In fact, the Blackfoot refused to camp at the base of Turtle Mountain, and they referred to it as the mountain that moves. Unbeknownst to the people of Frank, Turtle Mountain was structurally unstable. It had been formed over millions of years and was made up of a large top layer composed of dirt and shale. Beneath that was limestone splintered with veins of coal. Over time, the limestone pushed together as the dirt's top layer faded. Eventually, the limestone hung over the mountain with cracks, and unseen shifts in the mountain allowed rain to seep in. The water would freeze and thaw over time, and it created a geological ticking time bomb. Many believe that what happened next could have been prevented, that the coal mining company knew that the hill was unsafe and did not heed the warnings, and instead continued to mine the mountain in the endless pursuit of greed. On the evening of April 9th, 1903, miners working deep within Turtle Mountain heard rumblings. Then they felt the earth shake as coal fell off trolleys, which was out of the ordinary. The strange occurrence was ignored by workers and managers who had work to be done and coal to be extracted. On April 10th, 1903, at 4:10 a.m., the worst that could happen happened. The mountain gave way. Rock, dirt, and boulders that for centuries had been held in place came crashing down in the middle of the night. Families were warm in their beds when suddenly they awoke to the sound of a train rumbling towards them. Before they even had time to realize it, that the thunderous sound was actually 44 million cubic meters, or 110 million tons of limestone and rock, was barreling towards them. The rock slide destroyed everything in its path, from trees to homes which had families asleep inside. In less than 100 seconds, boulders traveled down the hill and slammed into houses on the eastern border of Frank, crushing everyone in sight, and went up 500 feet on the other side. Meanwhile, on the other side of Turtle Mountain, a train was slowly making its way to Frank when an engineer heard the rumbling. The crew instinctively knew that they were in danger. The engineer immediately set the train to full throttle in hopes that the maximum speed would help the train cross the bridge to safety and out of the slide's path. With only moments to spare, the train made the cross, only to witness the horror unfold in front of them as limestone traveled at 112 kilometers per hour from the mountains to the homes below. They watched helplessly as sleeping men, women, and children were entombed in their homes. Alfred Clark was one of those unlucky ones. Alfred Clark was working at the mine when around 4 a.m., he and some coworkers stepped outside at the base of the mountain for a break and to take in some crisp, clean air. As they chatted, rocks from the mountain tumbled down upon them, killing Alfred and his coworkers instantly. Soon, he would be joined in the afterlife by his loved ones, because seconds later, his family was killed instantly as they slept. His wife and 6 children were buried underground. The sole survivor from the family was his eldest daughter, Lillian, who had been working in town at the local hotel, and after finishing her shift at around midnight, decided to stay at the hotel instead of returning home. That fateful decision saved her life. She would never see her family again, and they wouldn't be discovered until 1924, when they were unearthed by construction workers building a new road through the Frank Slide. Right after the rock slide, in the immediate chaos, there were some survivors pulled from the rubble, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. After her home was destroyed, Gladys Ennis was found in the debris, choking on mud lodged in her nose and throat. Gladys's mother came to her rescue and saved her life by clearing away the mud so that she could breathe. Even though the rock slide directly hit Gladys's family home, by some miracle, everyone survived. Another incredible fortunate soul was Marion Leach, a young girl who was thrown from her home and into a pile of hay. Her sisters were also found safely under a collapsed ceiling joist. However, they were one of the lucky few. It is estimated that between 90 to 100 people died that night, and most were buried beneath the rocks and never recovered. The Frank Slide disaster remains a tragic part of Canadian history, and the area has remained unchanged since April 29, 1903. About 200 people still live in the area, but it is now a popular tourist destination as a provincial historic site and is home to the Frank Slide Interpretive Centre, which receives over 100,000 visitors annually. People who work at the center and live in the area know that they are often accompanied by the many souls entombed over a century ago. Staff and visitors have been walking the pathways of the rockslide when they suddenly notice a dark mist, almost like a fog, appearing out of nowhere. This phantasmal vapor will often hover over the rocks for a few moments and then just vanish, leaving the person utterly baffled about what they just witnessed. That's not the only supernatural phenomenon that has been reported. People have often seen lights that resemble lanterns when they look up to Turtle Mountain along the mountainside late at night. The lights look like the ones used by coal miners in the early 1900s. Even more terrifying are the reports of screams and the cries for help, which can be heard around the complex, but when they look around, there's no one there. Many people believe that the victims still buried beneath the rock slide are calling out for help, still to this day. But victims from the slide are not the only ones that wander in the area. As we mentioned, in the early 1900s, Frank was a mining town, and as such, many single men flush with cash were looking for company. Monty Lewis was a beautiful and popular sex worker who frequented one of the local hotels. Not only was Monty beautiful, but she was also very flamboyant and known to wear expensive jewelry, whether walking about town or sleeping in bed. She was well liked within the small town and was often seen daily walking up and down the dirt roads. However, after a few days went by, the townfolk grew worried when they hadn't seen her in a few days. In fact, they found it so odd that police officers knocked on her door in the local hotel. They knocked a few times, and when nobody answered, the officers entered. They were shocked by the graphic discovery. Lying on the bed was Monty's lifeless body, and all of her jewelry was gone. She had been murdered in her room late one evening, and without much investigation, as was the case at the time, local police officers were quick to blame a local drifter traveling through Frank at the time. She had been murdered in her hotel room late one evening, and without much investigation, as was the case at the time, local police were quick to blame a local drifter traveling through Frank at the time. This was the early 1900s, and condemnation was swift without much justice or rule of law. So the drifter was quickly found guilty and hanged for Monty's murder. But sadly, it was soon discovered that the drifter was not the killer. Monty's boyfriend confessed to the murder. It turns out the couple had gotten into a heated and violent argument. He wanted Monty to sell off her jewelry to pay off his gambling debts. When Monty refused, the boyfriend attacked her. He first beat her and then strangled her to death. Because of this injustice, it is believed that Monty's spirit still wanders throughout Frank. She can be heard crying late in the evening over her untimely death, and her ghost is believed to be a rather treacherous one, as she's thought to lure hikers off the trail and into danger. Some believe she's looking for vengeance. So when you visit the Frank Slide Interpretive Centre, be sure to enjoy the wondrous beauty of the Rocky Mountains and experience the history, but know that you're never alone. The spirits of nearly 100 people buried beneath, and of Monty, will be with you, walking alongside the trails and listening along to your conversations. So enjoy the walk and talk carefully. Thank you for joining me on our haunted and historic Frank Slide journey. Haunted Canada is sponsored by the Edmonton Ghost Tours. I will link it in the show notes. Haunted Canada is written and produced by me, Nadine Bailey, with senior producer Delia Vasquez. Production and sound design is by Rob Johnston, with help from Roslyn Kufer. If you would like to support the podcast, please follow and share. And if you can give us a like and a 5-star written review, that is always appreciated. Also, you can follow me on our different social media platforms, or if you have a ghost story, haunting, or true crime that you would like for us to cover on this podcast, please email me through the website hauntedcanada.com. Thank you from all of us at Haunted Canada and Curious Cast. Have a good night, everyone, and stay haunted.